Hello everybody and welcome to the first video that I'm doing, and I am very happy with this because I love this idea of the Tempest class. You'll probably have seen that in the title. Yes, you just heard me flick some papers. It's because I've been writing things down. So I wanted to look at the Tempest class and see what its possible roles would have been, the possible mindset behind it, and what it's good at so far. Now, we've seen this Tempest class in action, specifically in Salvation's Reach, which one of my favorite Gaunt's Ghost books right off the bat. One of my most heartbreaking as well, and I'm not going to spoil anything. So, Tempest class is essentially an escort that has anti-ship weapons on broadsides. Now, these aren't exactly big, and it looks like they might just be the same type of broadsides you see in a Dauntless light cruiser. However, there are significantly fewer of them. They still seem to have a turret, they have the same type of prow, and they seem to still have some point defense weapons, which means that they could still fulfill an escort role. Now, the possible mindset behind these might have been a couple of the following here. We got an escalated anti-piracy measure, which would make some sense if there's a lot of debris or damaged ships in the area, but there's also a heavy independent system nearby. Not independent of the Imperium, just something that has a lot more freedom than you would normally think. They just give simple tithes and whatever, and nobody pays too much attention because they could still expand. That's another, but the intricacies of the Imperium are another video. So the idea possibly could be that these pirates found some wreckages, put them together, repaired them, whatever. You know, that's something that happens in 40k. Not everything has to be funneled through the Mechanicus. Again, another video. Alright, so, escalated anti-piracy measures. Got that out of the way. That was one of the ideas that I thought might have been there, because they might have had some heavier ships that they needed to do with this. A short-term measure for anti-capital ship and frontier defense, which would make some sense. If you don't have many resources, but you want to get as much firepower as you can, you don't want to build a couple of Dauntless cruisers. You want to build a lot of these Tempests. They can both act as independent weapons base that are actually moving, and they can be harder to hit than a single Dauntless. However, that would also mean you have a lot more warp cores, or warp engines, whatever they want to call them at this point, put into them. And those are the most expensive and larger components of ships. And that might be the idea behind it, because if you don't want to build multiple Dauntlesses, you could just build multiple Tempests. But I'm not really sure about that either, so we'll figure it out someday. This is one of my favorite, though, is Slapdash last-minute regional reinforcements for wider dispersion. So, you have these old ships that are pushed back into service, updated just slightly enough to be competitive. You don't have many turrets, but you do have better broadsides, so why not? And that way you can actually take these ships and put them into the frontier defense without having to have bigger ships or requests from the greater Imperium a battle fleet to patrol the area, because you're not likely going to get one if you're just a frontier area. And this is great for, anti-Xenos incursions as well. You can have a wider net to keep everything going. An affordable conversion from system defense forces to fulfill a need for full warp-capable fleets. Now, this is something that I love very much about 40k. You see the system defense ships, they are generally more well-armed, or have a lot more guns, than standard Imperial Navy ships. But this is only because they do not have to cram a warp engine into it, which means that they can cram a lot more guns and power sources onto it. So you could have a conversion of system defense ships, which might explain why there's broadsides there. Again, this is just all speculation. We're just assuming these things. I could see the mindset behind this being that one system has a lot more system defense force ships that they need. The neighbor needs more, but you can't really get something like a system defense ship across without towing, and you still need a lot of heavier ships to do that, so why not make them independent, and you can share the resources between systems. Now, this brings about the idea of the alliances you see on other planets. Now, these, the Imperium is the Imperium, yes, but there are still smaller alliances, smaller oaths, and planets will rely on one another, and sometimes they'll even bind oaths to each other. So this might be a good idea between that. A need to fulfill a missing role by retrofitting old sword classes. I'm not too sure about this one. I mean, I saw this, online, and I thought, well, this actually makes some kind of sense as well, but at the same time, if you're going to retrofit old sword classes, why not just keep them as sword classes? They're already rare and extraordinarily venerable at that point anyway. I mean, it's even a point in Kane's series where they mention the Falchions, one of my favorite ships. They really weren't really too happy with the idea of the Falchions, the commanders, that is. And they preferred the older, more reliable, more well-known sword classes. But they did come to love the Falchion in the end. But I'm not going to get to the Falchion today. That's another day. Retrofitting old sword classes could work if you were talking about wreckages, like we normally see. Although I don't particularly enjoy it either, because it's a sword class. You don't want to mess with perfection. Well, not really, but still. But these are the possible roles. This is the next part. This is probably the last part, because this is going to be a short video, but the possible roles of these ships. Now, there are really only 2 roles they could possibly fill, given what they have. Well, 3 if you count what they were used for in Salvation's Reach, which is another thing that I'm going to get to. Actually, I'll include that too. But the possible roles would be an anti-capital ship, wolf pack ship. Now, we normally see wolf packs in things like cruisers and their own series against, larger battle groups, which makes some sense. But these Tempest classes could be very useful as Wolfpack ships. They have broadsides, turrets, and secondary defenses, which would make them extremely versatile. They're not only just basically cut down Dauntless classes, but they actually are, assumedly. I'm still assuming that. But they are still, enough of them in a Wolfpack would be hell. It'd be like dealing with a dozen Hawks instead of frickin' Condor. You'd rather have the Condor because you can shoot the Condor, and once it's dead, it's dead. But those Hawks, they're going to keep fighting. You clip a few wings, they're still going to come at you scratching your face off. Anti-heavy ship protection. I didn't know what this meant when I read it, but... And this, by the way, these possibilities are coming from me as well as a collection of ideas from people who asked the same questions. I had to actually look for them. Didn't know what this meant, but I'm assuming they mean... They are anti-ship, anti-heavy ship escorts. So they'll be fighting they'll be fighting heavier ships. I'm still not sure what that means either. And I don't think they could mean cruiser, because independent escorts like that might not be heavy enough to deal with cruisers, which will definitely squash them like bugs. But in the end, that's just one of the suggestions somebody else made. I thought it made some kind of sense at the time when I read it, but still can't really figure it out. But the third role, which is the one we see in Salvation's Reach with Gaunt's Ghost, is long-range, independent transportation of vital assets. You have enough armaments on you that you could actually deal with some things. I mean, it held its own. That beautiful ship held its own against demon ships. Not alone. It still had help, but it was still able to fight and deal enough damage, which was really, really freaking cool. Now you have this ship that is independent, has its own warp engine, has its own weapons and capabilities. It's got the size enough too, so yeah, that would make some sense to have long-range escorts or long-range transportation of vital assets. I could see this being used to transport very important individuals, not just like Gaunt's Ghosts. So yeah, that's this video. Yes, it's not exciting, and no, that's not what you're going to be here for this channel for. I'm not here to be exciting. I'm here just to list these cool things out and these possibilities. Though, to be honest, I did want to go into deeper detail about these worlds and what they would use with the Tempest classes. But I figured I'd start the series off with the naval assets, because I love the naval assets, and then progress onwards. So the next video will probably be about some Mechanicus ships or something else. I'm not really sure yet, but I'll look into it.